Well, now that we have a scaled drawing that we can print off and start to work from, to be honest, we could also zoom in and out here, change it up, whatever we would need to do, right? You can start to make all of the adjustments to base maps from this point forward. Now that you know how to correct your graphic scale and you know how to insert data, right? So again, some of this becomes what other information would we want to know and where would we be able to get that? In past weeks, I've had you go to Indiana Map and download some additional data sets, and that is certainly one option for bringing data in and taking a look at it. One of the other things that I wanted to make you aware of, and this is why I provided you with an elevation folder, is that I wanted to go ahead and let you know that in most cases now, we actually, and I'll turn this off for a second, have the ability to download and create relatively high quality contour information, elevation data. And in this particular case, this morning I went ahead and I pulled in, it's called LiDAR data, which is light detection and ranging. It's basically laser-based data. And you can see here at the moment, it's all messed up because when you bring it in, what it's trying to do is it's trying to set a unique value for all of these. And what we typically do instead is we use a stretched value. It's usually okay when we just set, all right, if you can't find it, it's the second one down, typically in the color ramps, and you hit OK. And you're going to see suddenly that I now have data that will actually go ahead and show me in an exaggerated format. It shows me the hillshade information, which basically says it's showing you visually what does the topography look like around our site. And you can see that because I've enhanced, amplified the effect of elevation, you're actually seeing the ditches and the roads popping out. You're seeing the streams that flow through our site and off onto the highway, right? All of this information is here and available. You see that it's even picking up, this is actually a rubble pile on the site. This is a little bit of tree clutter, meaning that it's, things that are, underneath the trees. I think that there's a little bit of stream right there. It's not perfect because the trees get in the way when they do the flight to collect this kind of information. However, LiDAR information is completely changing our access to this, to elevation data. It's one of the reasons that GIS is becoming so critical for all landscape architects. For free this morning, in about 20 minutes, I was able to download a LiDAR data set and run the process, which is actually still up right here. It's underneath the Spatial Analyst tools. I was able to take the LiDAR data and go in and first create a hillshade of it. I was then able to come back and also create a contour, and I'll show you the contours here in just a sec. Right? And so as you can imagine, this information, especially high resolution versions of this information, usually required hiring a surveyor and having this information mapped for you before you could begin using this information to inform your design. Sean's going to be working with you a little bit in class because you'll see that this is actually the LiDAR was actually taken, the photography used to create this information was taken before they completed the highway construction, and so it's not reflecting current site conditions, but it is reflecting just prior to highway, and we know what's been altered in the interim, and so you can start to get a sense for what the site looks like. You see that old 218 roadbed, it's actually still in place. It goes right up to the railroad tracks. The railroad tracks run this way, and then you come down gradient here. With the addition of a raised 4-lane highway, you basically have a bathtub that then has to work its way back uphill. It's more or less flat, and then it has to work its way uphill across a stream and then another major ditch before it gets up to the highway. That's what we're seeing in the contour information. That's what you should be able to get out of this. The last thing that I want you to do is, again, GIS is about accessing data. It's about getting more information in your hands to help inform site design. And so one other resource I haven't shown you yet is actually here under the little down arrow next to your Add Data button. I want you to add data, but this time I want you to add it from ArcGIS Online. What Esri is beginning to do, and this is part of the shift towards ArcGIS Pro, is that many of the layers that we work with commonly are available at a nationwide or even sometimes a global scale. And they're starting to try and put these libraries of data in a more accessible format. We're still in a weird transition period where most of the data was originally collected or developed at the community scale or maybe a county scale. We're just in the last 10 years have switched to state level data. True national data is something that is the USGS and others have invested in a handful of layers like land cover information, but we're just starting to knit all of this information together. What ArcGIS Online is it's starting to provide us with access to that information. And so wherever it comes from, they're starting to try and put together a common library of this data. So if I just type in Indiana, what you're going to see if you just scroll down is that all of the trail information we've used in past weeks is available here. The bedrock, you can go in and, count basic county layer if you ever needed to just grab that real quick. Lots and lots of information here. But in this particular case, I want you to type in Indiana wetlands and search for that. Right here at the top, wetlands of Indiana, right? And I think it's from the National Wetland Inventory completed in 2014. I want you to just click Add. And when you click Add, you're going to see that right over here, and I can actually even jump in a little bit more detail than that, is that the National Wetland Inventory identified the northeast corner of our site, and really it only comes across our site boundary, very, very minor location. This has actually been turned into wetland mitigation for the highway. There's been a lot of grading down the 218 corridor to make changes, and so permits had to be applied for to get in here. But what that should help us understand is that maybe we should be paying more attention to this site and the soils and other information that's going on here. I'd strongly encourage you to take a look and see what other types of information that you can acquire from ArcGIS Online that might be relevant to our site. And so, again, you can start with Indiana and you can kind of start to dream up what are all of the possible things that you might want to know about our site and just see what else might be out there. Right? I tend to kind of, take this approach. Some of it might just be to make sure that we don't know, make sure that we're not missing any critical information that would come up. But something you might want to know the natural region of the state. Something else that might be interesting to know is that you can actually look at pre-settlement information, and so there's a land cover data set that you can look up that the Department of Natural Resources produced that describes in broad categories what this land was prior to European settlement in the early 1800s. So all of this information's out there. I want to encourage you to always be looking for more and better data to help inform your site design. You have to get out and walk sites. You're not ever going to replace that, but this is great information. For instance, this wetland information right here. The current version of the plan for this park has the entry drive coming right through the heart of this wetland, right through the heart of this. And it's something to pay attention to, because anytime we actually start getting into wetlands, we actually have to start going through and understanding the permitting process that comes along with wetland mitigation. So a client that doesn't know that they're working on a wetland might approach the site very differently if they start to understand that filling, dredging, or excavating anything that's been identified as a wetland is going to require that you go through a regulatory process, which at a very minimum means contacting the Indiana Department of Environmental Management and working through to understand what are the impacts of doing any work in and around an area that's been identified as part of the National Wetland Inventory. So just something to pay attention to and understand that GIS can be a great source of information. You'd hate to get to the end of a design stage only to realize that there are permitted wetlands or that there are identified wetlands that have been inventoried on your site. I was actually involved in a project in the last year where they absolutely did get to that point, and we're very, very fortunate that when this site level evaluation was done for wetland soils, that it turned out that the facilities that were being planned only had to be moved 10 or 15 feet. There was a real chance there for a while that they were going to lose the whole project. So again, GIS can provide us with all of this useful information. Take a little while to explore and see what else might be out there that help you understand your particular community, or this particular community, and the site that we'll be working on throughout the semester.